Hello everyone and welcome to this latest video discussion as part of the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight and I've been with RICS for nearly 12 years now. My role is to look at the impact of data and technology right across the built and natural environment, and with over 110,000 qualified members working right across the world, right across the property life cycle through land, planning and development, construction, brokerage, valuation, building surveying, building management, asset management. It's a hugely wide palette upon which data and technology is having a really positive effect on the sector. And indeed, our members work right across all the different asset types, whether that's land itself, residential, commercial, alternative assets, and indeed infrastructure. And today I'm really glad to have Ian join us from Surventrix Systems. So please, Ian, do join us on the call.
Hello there.
Welcome, Ian. Great to have you on the call. And I always like to start, before we get into the kind of the bits and the bytes and the technology side, it'd be great to hear about a bit about your background and almost the origin story of Surventrix itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. So I'm Ian. I suppose for my sins, I'm a chartered surveyor of nearly 30 years now. Seems as though that's gone quite quick, but there you go. Yeah, loved every minute of that. Been an interesting journey over the decades, really. And yeah, I work within the residential sector, so residential survey and valuation predominantly. That's all I've ever done. It's what I'm good at. It's what I know. And yeah, I've worked at various sort of levels. Started out corporate world and ended up into small private practice, and ended up now where I am right now, which is carpenter surveyors. So my day-to-day is obviously a surveying practice. I run and manage a residential practice in the Midlands. Yep. We're an SME really. I'd class us as a 7 to 10 surveyor size practice. And yeah, I think Surventrix has kind of come through, I suppose, chance more than anything. You know, we've used technology for many years really in the surveying sense. One of the early adopters of trying new things, and with tablets and digital data capture and so on, that's always been an interest of mine. And yeah, it happened as a chance conversation probably maybe a year or so ago, with a friend and a colleague really, who the other side of Surventrix is Ben, my colleague. So it's me and Ben. I run residential survey and valuation practices, as I say. So I'm used to coming at things from this is what I want tools to do, this is how I want to capture that, this is compliance, etc., etc. So where I kind of come in, I kind of speak for the masses, hopefully, and represent what I think people will want to see. Ben is the mind behind it all, really. He's the genius brains behind it in terms of, you know, I give him the ideas, he builds it, and he's got a very good team of developers that sit behind him. Surventrix isn't new. I mean, Surventrix has been around a while. I think it started life out as a panel management tool, actually. Okay. As I say, Ben, my business partner, he runs his own firm as well in his sort of, dare I say, spare time. But he's a panel management firm. I'm a surveying firm. I think put those two things together, and what we've ended up with is something that's quite special, really, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell where we've got to.
No, and you know, you say it's quite special, but I think special in a really good way, because it's that combination of, to use the jargon, the kind of domain knowledge of the built environment and that technical knowledge as well. Because I think there's always a danger that if you don't have both those sides of the coin, you end up with technical solutions which don't solve any problems, or as a built environment specialist, you might not have the technical skills to say, well, how do we build this technology? Because I'm very mindful whenever I have these kind of conversations that whilst the technology can be interesting, it's really about the business problems it's solving rather than the technology itself, because otherwise it's just tech for tech's sake sort of thing. And I suppose on that theme, and it's great that you obviously walk and talk what it is to be a, you know, as you say in the RSV, or the residential survey and valuation. I mean, what barriers and problems is Surventrix solving for, you know, a typical RICS registered firm that works in that sector?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good question. Yeah, there's lots of, I call them cool features and problem fixes that have helped me in my business, really. And I think I just think we've approached it from a point of view of, we live in a world now where people want things quicker. They want to be able to do digital. They want to be able to streamline things and produce efficiencies and automate and do all those wonderful things. But we kind of live in a world as a surveying practice where we can do lots of cool things with lots of cool systems in different places. So what we've tried to do is to bring everything into a simple one-stop shop solution. So, you know, bringing CRM, bringing cloud technologies, data capture, compliance, management report tools, bringing that all under one roof. So in terms of problems that it fixes. I think it's cost savings. You know, it's
Yeah.
rationalizing several systems into one. It's bringing your compliance together. You know, we've got a huge digital storage capability, workflow management, business management sort of tool capability to the system. It's bringing all of your CRM and data capture with regards to how you engage with your clients. It's automating things in a good way. I think the one thing I've learned probably over the last several years, really, it's not necessarily a new thing, but I think there's been some really good systems out there that can automate some stuff within a practice that, for me personally, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit old school, but there are certain functions I want human being to interact with clients, for example. And I think it's trying to do it in a nice way. So it's trying to automate the things that nobody really maybe enjoys doing, you know, and dare I say it, and there'll be some people that are outraged by it, but compliance can be quite a tricky one, really. So I think it's trying to, I suppose, kind of get you to a point where you can automate and become a compliant business without trying too hard. You know, if you capture your flows and processes in a really good way, a robust way, you get more out of it the more you put into Surventrix, I would say. So we set everything up with the clients to get the best from them. The minute you take that initial inquiry through to archiving that job and everything in between, there's lots of features that there's lots of problems along the way, really, I suppose, that you are potentially solving, as I say, in different parts of the business, whether that's, you know, how you interact and deal with terms and conditions, whether that's case log file notes and audit trails and allocating work and job types and mandates and peer reviews. The list goes on, and it's kind of bringing all that together, really, and that's exactly what Surventrix does. And of course, you've got the report writing side to it as well.
Exactly. No, and I mean, it's an interesting point you raised there about effectively one system doing so many tasks, because I guess one of the challenge with so many bits of software around is that, you know, I do talk to practices where they've ended up with lots of software, but they don't talk to each other, and you end up rekeying, or you've got that issue because it's all very well getting technology, but you can end up almost worse off because you end up with systems that don't talk to each other. So I think it's an important point, that kind of integration, isn't it?
It is, it really is, and that's an important point, really. I think there's some really good tools out there, and you know, I have to admit that, but it's a case of having multiple sort of facets to these processes, and having APIs and things like that. They're all great, but really this ought to be under one roof. And I think if you've got command and control over how those two systems integrate, or 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, if I break down Surventrix in terms of what it actually is, there are several key tools, really, and those are all in one place. They're not APIs linking elsewhere. They are all just one system, you know, and that's the beautiful thing, really. It's complex, but I think it's presented and it's put together in a way that's very user friendly. And I think, well, if someone like me can use it, anyone can, really.
I said the other interesting thing you touched on was that kind of because we always, dare I say, there's a danger you forget there's a customer involved here, because yes, we're talking about software for a saying firm, but it's about, and as you touched on, almost that blend of automation but not losing the human touch, because it's still a service and it's still about human beings dealing with each other. So how do you see yourself kind of squaring that circle about, yes, it's automation, but you're still not losing that kind of human and that quality experience of working with somebody you trust and being able to talk to them if you want to them, or being able to do the automated route as well? Do you try and blend the two almost?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, another brilliant point, really. I mean, I'm quite passionate about, you know, from a small sort of scale, from a, you know, local regional practice. What I'm passionate about, what's really important to me is people, whether that's the clients or whether that's my colleagues and my team. And what I would never lose sight of or want to, yes, we can automate everything, you know, in terms of the day-to-day. We could even automate the surveying data capture if we wanted to, especially with some of the cool features that are coming along now. But I think people work with people and people relate to people, and I just think in a way that, especially within our arena, I guess it's different in different sectors maybe and different parts of the world, but for what we do, and certainly the residential sector, and I see this commercial as well, is that, you know, you have to engage, you have to talk to clients, you have to really get to know their needs and wants, and you can't do that with AI. Yes, you can if you want to. That doesn't mean you should, really, in my opinion. I think it's, and I mean that in a nice way. I just, you know, it can scare a lot of people, it can overwhelm people, and I think if you've got that human interaction and make the human interaction side positive, and it can make that human being's role more streamlined and more efficient, they get to spend more time doing the bit that they enjoy, and that's showcasing your business to your clients. And so things like terms and conditions, yes, nobody likes sort of writing those or dealing with those manually, so that's a good example. But when you're dealing with client engagement and quotations and processes there, I love the fact that you can talk to Susan or Emma in the office. I don't see that being a bad thing at all. We shouldn't lose sight of the importance of that. But equally, AI is very important, and I think it's those mundane tasks really that, for me, and the important ones, your case notes, your audit trails, all of those documentational processes, the management tools. Yeah, nobody really enjoys that, so let's automate that bit that nobody really wants to do, and perhaps really should take more seriously, because from a compliance point of view, I think that's, I can't state how important that is. When you get that compliance visit or that member support visit, they're going to want to see ticks in those boxes.
Yeah.
And if you're not dealing with that in a robust way, and I'd argue that AI is the most robust way of doing that. But yeah, I think underpinning all of that, it's all about that teamwork between your staff, and that's at the heart of everything we do. So we've tried to look at it from a yes, we could, but should we? A bit of a perhaps an emotional question to think about there, and maybe that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I just think that human interaction is important, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's an argument that actually, if you automate the right parts of the process, you free up more time for the human interaction, and that also it's still about giving people a choice, isn't it, about whether they want to interact with you for certain parts of the process in a very automated way, or whether they still are able to ring up and have a conversation. I think it's about that choice for the customer, and ironically, this should free up more time for human interaction when it's really valuable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the many things that I'm really enjoying about software and the prop tech, and look, I'm a surveyor, not a salesman, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a software engineer, I'm just an ideas person really in a way, and I'm just helping to sell something that I believe in its most basic form. But what I do really love is that I see in our business and all the clients that we're working with, is the real change it's making to their firms, not just on the process level and the automation level, but it's the secretarial support, it's the clients that they're getting more hand-holding, they get more time. It's all about time, really, for me. And if you automate an efficiency in a certain way, you give that client the time that they need or deserve. I think if you do that and apply the savings and the efficiencies in the right way, your clients get the benefit, but also your team. If you look at surveyors, you can apply this to any part of the business, and it is universal. But your surveyors can spend more time looking at the building instead of a clipboard or an iPad. You can do it any which way, and that works all the way through the different steps of the process. But the other cool thing that we've tried to engage with is that we don't force a firm to use any one part of the tool or any one part. So it's very flexible. So some firms will say, no, I just want to automate all of that, and fair enough, that's absolutely fine. But ours is not a system to replace an admin team. It's not there to replace, it's there to enhance and support, really, I think.
Yeah, and I think there is, I think, on an optimistic note, a sense that this isn't about replacing people, as you say. It's about making them more efficient, allowing them to do more of the stuff they're actually good at in terms of adding value to the process. As you say, actually spending more time inspecting the asset rather than worrying about the paperwork they're going to do when they get back to the home office or their office. So you've touched on it already to some extent, but it'd be quite nice, I think, for our listeners who are in that regulated firm situation, just to really just clarify, how does it help with that regulatory piece? Because, as you know better than I do, there are these compliance pieces that you need to do. And how would you highlight those critical parts of the system that now handle that compliance piece?
Yeah, so no, indeed. I think one of the areas that Surventrix really kind of shows off in a way is the compliance side. I think the front end and the back end functionality of dealing with the CRM and the report writing, data capture, very important parts of the process. But where there is an understated sort of element that we really kind of come into our own is that compliance aspects, whether that's from the minute you create a file from its very inception through to archive, there are many facets that from a regulation and compliance point of view you have to demonstrate. There are so many boxes to tick, there are so many paper trails, audit trails that you need to be aware of, and those need to be done under a strict process. They need to be demonstrated, and they need to be able to look back at any point over the last 15 years and pull out a case to see who did what when and at what time and so on and so forth. Well, that's where automation really comes into its own, and that is where it wins very, very quickly. Is that you know, every process has a reaction and an imprint on the file, and that doesn't necessarily need the human to do it. You know, I think it's very much you know, you talk about terms and conditions. Well, that's a fixed document, and yes, you can automate that, but who's ensuring that it's the right terms and conditions, and who's presenting that into the client in a way that they can understand it and that it's the right product for the client, who's discussed the needs and wants with the client, and how has that been recorded on the file. You know, if any given sample audit of a record on Surventrix, I'm confident that, I'd like to think at least, that anyone could look at it and understand where it all started, how it got to the end resolution, and that actually there's a checklist of probably 30 to 40 key trigger points where if you haven't demonstrated that or logged it, made note of that, you haven't complied with the industry level standard or the practice notes in various forms. But so it's those checks and balances, and I think that's where, you know, if you've got a process and you fix that in a digital form, whether that's at the front end on the web portal or whether that's digital site note data capture in the field, or whether that's a management audit process in the middle, all in one place, and it's all done. You follow a flow, and it's just simplified that in a way that is logical and complies with the expected sort of minimum standard. I mean, I suppose for my sins, having sort of run and been involved in a practice for many years, and some of the work that I do on a personal level, I've seen, you know, how tricky that can be. You know, it's a very subject. So I think people don't take it seriously enough. You know, I think everybody wants to do things quicker, more efficiently, save time, effort, money, whatever, and automation. It's a dangerous path to go down without thinking too much about compliance, I think, really, for me. But yeah, so a big part of what we push and try to support firms with is focusing on that piece, really, is compliance in the middle.
Yeah, I think it's a danger, isn't it, that data and technology almost thinks that it's sort of in a different world from the real world of compliance and these kind of issues, that it's not a get out of jail card that you've automated a process. It's about making sure that automation enhances your capability for compliance, but certainly doesn't damage it, because, you know, these real world standards exist in cyberspace, don't they? We can't get away from the fact that we still need to deliver these kind of services. I mean, one thing that always fascinates me is and it was a lot of feedback we had in the survey that we did with our tech partners earlier, back end of last year, was around, you know, the brutal reality of customers getting a return on investment for investing in tech, because tech has a cost, both in terms of software and you know, person hours to sort of integrate it and make it happen. I mean, what sort of things are you hearing from your customers that give you that great comfort that they're getting value from it, that actually it hasn't just been an exercise in spending money on technology? That what's the value they're getting from it?
Yeah, I think the thing that excites me the most with Surventrix, I mean, look, I know it's a commercial business, it has to make money, that's the whole point, really, I guess. But one of the things that gives me great pleasure is that, having done the job for 30 years, and you look, one of our taglines is built by surveyors for surveyors, and that's genuine. You know, I've had you know, at least some sort of input in where to go forward in terms of longer term vision. But what we can do, and what we have been doing, is offering kind of a mentoring service in part of the onboarding process. So every client that comes on board with Surventrix, for example, we go through a journey. We don't just give them a trial on the system and say, there you go, use it for a month and we'll talk again. We get them to a point where actually they can use that and start to engage with it in a way that we're comfortable that it does the way I've always done it, and their business is branded, and their documents are in place, and their processes, and all of that sort of training stuff. But the important thing, the value add, really, I guess, is not just a financial one. It's hopefully, now I don't sit here to profess to say I have all the answers or I'm the right person for the job, but I'd like to think that that experience brings to the table a bit of a safety net and a bit of a put your arms around that firm. And one of the best things for me so far has been, we've got clients of all sizes, you know, ranging from sole practitioners right through to national, you know, larger firms. And I get great pleasure from helping the sole trader, the small, medium-sized firms that think, I'm a bit lost on this, and particularly on the regulation side. I think that's where it's been an interesting one, because everybody wants to try and make the right thing. And when they reach out to a firm like Surventrix and they're looking for solutions, they're obviously trying to do the right thing in the right way, and they just need some support and experience, really. And I think hopefully I like to think, at least, I bring a bit of experience of thinking, well, look, you know, for the job that I've done for this length of time, and having run a practice in the way I have, and been through those audits and you know, dealt with those sort of processes. And also the other side of it is, you know, an RICS registered expert witness. So I've dealt with negligence cases, for example. Quite a nice subject, but it's one that I've learned a lot from that I can apply to try and help people to make sure that actually, if you are tested as a business or on a case, this is going to help you do so. This is going to help you. And seeing that sort of light bulb moment for one or two firms that we've dealt with very early on, it's been humbling really to sort of see that feedback. And so for me, I think the value add is trying to give something back and do something for the profession that has always been so good to me. And I think Ben shares that vision really from, you know, from his side. He's an absolute wonderful mind with regards to engineering and development, and he's just enjoyed the journey of building something, and he thrives on solving problems. And I think those two things are a very good recipe to change a business. And yeah, financials are important. Yes, it's about saving money, and yes, I think we are very cost effective. I'm not here to obviously sell it from the point of view of costings, but it will save firms money. But more importantly, it makes them compliant. It makes them sort of engage in the right way with customers. The customers, I've seen businesses where they've had an instant uptick in conversion rates and things like that, because their staff, their team, they're engaging in the right ways, in the right places, and it's had an impact instantly. And that is amazing to see. There's no better satisfaction than that, to see, you know, and the proof's in the pudding. I mean, we've not advertised, it's just all been organic. So it's an interesting journey ride for us at the moment. But yeah, I think value add is more than just financial for me, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to forget that this isn't just an internal exercise of digitization, is it? It's about how it affects ultimately all our customers in terms of the people who use surveying. Is that's an important thing. And I guess also I'm always very mindful that, you know, technology, to use the sort of slightly clumsy phrase, should be democratized. This is not about just larger firms having access to these kind of services, because, as you know, the bulk of our ICS members work in small practices, sole traders. So it's really important that technology is reaching to that level. And I guess one final thought I have is around almost the concept that I'm sure you're always bringing on new talent and trainees. And, you know, it's one thing to put a system in, but that system's got to work for people at different parts of their career stage. And do you handle that in terms of, you know, you'll have trainees out there, you'll have obviously experienced surveyors. Can this sort of system help with both bringing those people on and obviously perhaps having access rights that at a very technical level just reflect the level of expertise they have at a point in time?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because that is probably where it's the icing on the cake moment for me, where actually when you see some of the layers of command and control and peer reviews and audit processes and workflow management processes that we've been built into, as I say, into the automation. So for any given firm, whether you're a sole practitioner looking to grow or a national firm looking to manage 50 odd surveyors, we have clients of all sizes, like I say. So what you have the ability to do is to command and control all of that in a good way, in a positive way, in a way that sets up offices, users with different levels of access, different regional territories, different types of work. So you can't allocate the wrong job to the wrong person in the wrong location for the wrong fee. All of those things that we all, look, from a human element point of view, if we go back to how we did this sort of, I don't know, 20 years ago, and we'd send an email with a quote, various documents on, all of that automation we spoke about before, where it really can be quite cool, is like your fee scales, it's your work allocation, it's your Steve or your Sarah that's just started, that might be associate RICS level. That can be peer review, secondary surveyor sign off, all of those checks and balances that are there to protect you. And you know, that's the bit really that Surventrix does at its core. You know, that's what it's all about. So I think you have really under the hood, the engine of sorts is really that business management platform that really sells itself. And as I say, it not so much on a small sole practitioner, but if they're looking to grow, and looking to sort of outsource, or, you know, you've got different levels of access ranging from surveyors to admin to account owners, and all the permissions that go with that. So you can help a firm grow, or you can help a large firm manage. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, it's been fascinating to talk and really sort of, you know, really an optimistic message here about the benefits of automation, but also I think that critical piece, which I know we touched on at the very beginning, around having that mix of technical but property knowledge, because some of these issues just wouldn't come to the fore of somebody who was just thinking about a technical workflow. Just that thing we've talked about ASSOP RICS being signed off by a supervisor, those kind of nuances that really you have to be in the sector to really understand and build into the software. Well, for today, Ian, it's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to catching up again. But for today, thanks ever so much, and say talk again soon.
Yeah, no, very, very grateful for your time, and yeah, enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Bye-bye now.